Perfect. So good evening, everyone. Wow, we're kicking off with so many attendees live here. That's awesome. Thank you so much for joining in, everyone. My name is Mekar. I'm the Country Director for Founder Institute Sweden. And today at this countrywide launch event, we're talking about startup funding in Sweden. Sweden is a global innovation hub. A lot of great companies are out. They're coming out of this country. So today, we're cracking the funding code in Sweden. So guys, this event is jam-packed with great speakers who will show you exactly how to make yourself more attractive to investors and raise capital for your startup. I see a lot of people joining in. So we'll just give everyone a couple of minutes to come in before we dive right into the topic. So in the meanwhile, let me give you a quick intro to who we are here at Founder Institute. So Founder Institute is a global program based in Silicon Valley that helps aspiring entrepreneurs launch their businesses worldwide. And we're the world's largest pre-seed startup accelerator that has helped launch more than 5,000 companies across 200 cities in over 6 continents, in all 6 continents, actually. So if you're planning to launch your startup, we're now enrolling for our Sweden Virtual 2022 program that starts in April. We're super, super excited. So you can go and check out our program on our website. A little bit about today's event. Today's event is about startup funding. We'll be discussing the anatomy of a fundable company and all about making your startup more attractive to investors. And to talk about all this and much, much more, we're honored to have with us investors, VCs, and leading ecosystem experts on startup funding. Founder Institute Sweden is run by a very passionate team dedicated to strengthening the startup ecosystem in the entire Sweden and help early stage Swedish startups grow into impactful businesses. I'm Mekar. I'm the Country Director for Founder Institute, and my plan is to make the Founder Institute a leading pre-seed startup accelerator in Sweden and bring FI-level support and resources to founders in all cities and towns of this country. Camilla Sandström is our program and events lead. She manages all events, both pre-program as well as the core program events. Anna Lindback is startup and coaching lead. Most likely your contact person when it comes to understanding the program, participating in it, and the post-program contact as well. Then we have Kathy Chen, who is the ecosystem and mentors lead. She manages all mentor relations, plus how Founder Institute works within the startup and innovation ecosystem. FI Sweden currently has over 100 mentors who are ready to guide you through your startup journey. So Kul Veda is our partnerships and research lead, and he connects us with program partners, sponsors, and also researching different ways to improve our offering. Miskin Kanat is our digital marketing and communications lead, and she's responsible for our social media, our PR, and our digital strategy. So awesome people, all of them. Then we have today Emmet King, who's the founder partner of XYVentures. Julia is here, who's the CEO of SSE Business Lab. Simon Olson, founding partner of XYVentures. Marcus Boijemyr, who's the CEO of Almi Invest. And Stefan Sönnerstedt, who's the CEO of Connect Sweden. The agenda for today is pretty simple. The speakers will introduce themselves in a while, super short introduction, and then we'll dive deep into the topic of fundraising in Sweden. They will then answer your questions in the Q&A session. So guys, remember that after the Q&A, we have arranged a special networking opportunity on AirMeet. So once your questions are answered, it's time to bring everything to life, meet each other, discuss your ideas, make new contacts, practice pitching, get feedback, and bring life to this event. And in AirMeet, you'll also have the opportunity to meet us, the team, and find out more about the program. And we'll share the link in the chat after the Q&A. So this event is live, and we really want to really want you to keep it interactive. That's the whole point. So at any time, if you have any questions, please go ahead and pop them into the Q&A tool, the Q&A section, where our producers will either answer them directly or they will direct them to the speakers who will answer them then. So please feel free to introduce yourselves to each other, drop in your LinkedIn profiles, network, connect with each other, talk about your big ideas, and ask questions, either general or specific to the awesome speakers that we have here today. So let's fire up the chat room. So without further ado, let's hear from our speakers. Let's start with you, Emmet. A quick intro, please.
Yes, thanks, Mecca. And thanks for having me. Great that Founder Institute is here in Sweden now. My name is Emmet King, one of the founding partners of XYVentures. So we're a Stockholm-based early stage fund. So for us, that means investing at pre-seed and seed stage. Initial investments ranging from 200,000 euros up to close to 2 million euros in a broad range of sectors, business model types, technologies, and working very closely together with an angel investor network that we also run and collaborate with, called DHS Venture Partners. So in that sense, we have somewhat of a hybrid model that combines kind of the institutional capital of VC and networks and kind of repeat experience of working with companies through a particular stage, together with the kind of niched expertise, experience networks that angel investors may bring from whatever markets or business models they've worked with themselves. So we're often looking at early opportunities together with them, and in many cases co-investing with those angels too. So that's me and J12 in brief.
Thank you very much, Emmet. Thank you very much. Julia, stage is all yours.
Hi, thank you. It's great to be here. My name is Julia Delin, and I am the CEO of SSE Business Lab, which is the venture incubator of Stockholm School of Economics. And what we do is provide coaching, mentorship, startup funding through our investor networks, but also co-working space at the renowned A House up in Stockholm. And my background is in business and economics. I founded my startup during my time at SSE myself. I was in the SSE Business Lab incubator and in the accelerator program at Sting, and I learned a lot about how to run a startup and definitely not run mine. And so I shut that down, and I have since been helping other startups succeed much more than I did. And it's been a pleasure. I've been working 3.5 years now at the Business Lab, coaching other startups. It's now up to 150 people that I've sat down with different ideas, and super excited to be here and talk to you guys about your ideas and early stage startups. That's what I'm really passionate about.
Thank you so much, Julia. We're so honored to have you here. Let's see, then we have Marcus. Over to you, Marcus.
Thank you. Happy to be here. My name is Marcus Boijemyr. I'm CEO and fund manager for Almi Invest Stockholm region. So Almi Invest has funds across the whole of Sweden. So we have 8 different regional funds. And we are a pre-seed seed investor, by far the most active. Actually, we do between 50 and 70 investments per year. So we are very active throughout the whole of Sweden. But me and my team, we're focusing on Stockholm-based companies. I have a background as entrepreneur. Actually, in 2005, I was sitting at SSE Business Lab, running my own company. I was sitting there with the Klarna guys, and they did better than I did. So, but in 2010, I joined another startup, a Norwegian-based one, and I've been there for 7 years. So I had quite some time as an entrepreneur. And that is a startup which is now a much bigger company, running through a scale-up phase and with a 1 billion SEK revenue, unicorn valuation. So I've been through the whole journey, basically. So that's in short about me, and I'll let you know more about Almi Invest and our focus later on.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Marcus. This is so inspiring, your whole journey, and I'm sure that our audience are going to love hearing what you have to, your point of view on funding in Sweden. We have about almost 230 people who have signed up for today. So great. Thank you very much. Simon, you're up next.
I can't get the mute button off. There we go. Awesome. All right. So my name is Simon, and I run actually two funds. One angel-based fund called Greens in Stockholm, and then XYVentures, which is a pre-seed fund, primarily investing in deep tech companies that are connected to the major accelerator programs in the Bay Area. I have a background as an engineer and entrepreneur. So I had a company way back like 7 years ago, and I'm very passionate about energy technology overall. So that's sort of my backstory, if you will, and has, since I exited that company, made quite a lot of angel investments on my own, and now it's been materialized into these two funds. So that's what we do, and deep tech means quite a lot to, depending on who you ask, but for us it means companies who solve a substantial engineering challenge, exciting new technology, basically.
Wow. Brilliant. Thank you so much, Simon. We're so honored to have you here. So excited to hear what you have to share today. Next up is Stefan. Thank you for your patience. Stage is all yours, Stefan. Stefan, do you hear us?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great.
Yes.
Great to be here. Yes, my name is Stefan Sonnerstedt. I'm representing Connect Sweden East being the East region. That is basically Stockholm and what we call Mälardalen, cities like Örebro, Linköping, Västerås, and so forth. Connect, in short, our mission is to shorten the way to success for entrepreneurs. And we do that by, of course, capital funding is one important piece to get to have the journey, the growth journey, and also competence. So we try also to bring in competence. And we do that with a large network. First of all, the investor network, most angels, but also some small VC and family office companies. I count to about 450 different angels. So it's a big network. And also our partners and competence people around us. That is how we achieve and can help so many companies. We actually work with 150 startups per year.
Wow.
It's I meet a lot of startups, so it's amazing how so many ideas and exciting people I meet in my job. My background, otherwise, I've been working in the banking industry for more than 20 years, almost with everything, but mainly with FX and fixed income products, also with alternative investments. But in the last 8 years, I worked in the startup universe and also made some of my own investments in some early stage companies. But I will tell you more about Connect later on.
Brilliant. There is so much we can learn from you today, and I'm sure that our audience are waiting to hear what you guys have to share. So thank you so much for your introductions, everyone. Questions have already started flowing in, and I can see from the chat that the audience is very excited to hear your take on funding in Stockholm. So we'll now give each of the speakers the stage to present their organization formally and also discuss today's topic from their perspective. There will be 5 presentations in total, and we'll start in alphabetical order, starting with Emmet, then Julia, Marcus, Simon, and Stefan. To the audience, I'd advise that as you watch these presentations, please write your comments in the chat, your questions in the Q&A tool, and we'll be answering them soon. So keep them coming. So without further ado, Emmet, please feel free to share your presentation.
Super, thank you. I'll share these slides. You can see those?
Yes, we do.
All right, super. So I'll try to be fairly quick. I thought I'd just run through first a bit of context for the presenting a bit of the ecosystem, then a little introduction further to J12 and how we look at companies and what excites us about the kind of companies that we invest in. So very briefly, a picture that probably everyone's familiar with. European venture is gaining huge momentum. This graph shows kind of half yearly how much has been invested in VC over the last few years, and as you see this year, there's been a massive spike there. So a lot is happening in Europe for many reasons, and a lot of that activity is also happening in Stockholm. So in absolute terms, Stockholm has the third most VC invested, and per capita the most. So it's a great place to be in Stockholm, and not only Stockholm, the rest of Sweden. There's a lot of activity as well. So as a founder, as an investor, it's an exciting time. And one of the reasons that we see for this is, what we often refer to as kind of the flywheel in the ecosystem. So here you have the logos of all of the companies that have reached this mythical $1 billion valuation. And, with each of these, a Spotify, a Klarna feeds back into the ecosystem money, employees who have done great things to contribute to those successes that then work in new companies, founders who go on to start, companies for a second or a third time. And that's one of the key drivers as to why the number of these successes being born seems to increase year on year. And I think from our perspective, we don't expect that to change. So the momentum within the Swedish ecosystem continues to build. From an investment perspective, this is a very simplified picture of the investing landscape. We've done a kind of a more granular look at this. So if you find XYVentures on Medium, you can see that article. But essentially, there's a lot of angels investing now at pre-seed and seed stages, partly born from being operators or founders in some of those companies that I mentioned before. And then at the later stages here, as you see on the top right, some of the larger traditional funds, Creando, Olson, XYVentures. Those in the middle, there's a lot more international activity coming to Sweden. So the eyes of the rest of Europe and the US are also investing increasingly at early stages too. And that red bar is where we at J12 sit, and a few others that are very active across the seed stage spectrum. So for us to just build on the intro I gave earlier, we have this hybrid model on the left side that's represented as our fund team, Capital Access, working a lot with companies in terms of finding the repeatability needed to scale towards Series A and international expansion. And on the right-hand side, the 25 different angel profiles there, bringing kind of niched expertise when we look at companies too. And in the last couple of years, we've invested in 20 companies. 11 of those are what we would call pre-seed, sometimes pre-revenue, still developing product. 9 of those at seed stage, so with some traction, but still building forward across consumer, B2B, subscription models, marketplace, SaaS, etc. But so for us, we see a lot of companies that I think we perceive to be good businesses, and that will grow. But I think venture capital is about outsized returns and outliers that lie at the edge of that. So what we're ultimately looking for is the kind of risks to take that excite us, where we perceive that those kind of outlying returns can exist. And in simple form, that often looks like founders that we perceive to be exceptional with unique market insights into what they're doing, addressing large market opportunities, where the risk that we are looking to take is either on the market side, where we see that a company is perhaps creating a whole new market, or is operating within a significant shift that's undergoing within a large market, and the dynamics allowing a new entrant to become a category leader. Or there's inherent product risk, meaning a little as Simon mentioned earlier around deep tech and exciting technology. There's a product risk, there's a difficult technology to bring to the market, and there's something that maybe represents kind of a 10x innovation on what exists today. So these are the things that we look for to be kind of more exciting than just good business cases to invest in. And a framework to simply run through that we often kind of have a lens to look through when looking at companies is essentially, is there a market big enough to facilitate a company growing to $1 billion valuation, $100+ million in annual revenues? How do we perceive the risks with regards to it being, in a nice way, something difficult to pull off technologically, operationally? What is our conviction in the market? A lot is to do with timing. What are the shifts in consumer behavior that mean that this should happen? How are the dynamics of the market, regulations shifting that allow this to be a thing now? And then obviously, and also very much at an early stage, what we call the go part. How do we perceive the team and how do we understand their go-to-market strategy? So from a team perspective, that can be, a lot to do with what is the founder fit with the kind of product that they're building, what is the founder fit with the kind of market that they're addressing, and the need to see these things as being exceptionally strong. But also, is this a team that we perceive has the magnetism to attract, a lot of capital after we invest, to attract the best talent out there where it's very competitive, to attract the best talent, to attract customers and all stakeholders needed to build a big company around what they're doing. And on the go-to-market side of things, is the company beginning to show that they have a strong idea as to how to reach customers, sell to customers, price the product or service that they offer, and start to do that at scale. And if we can build some conviction for ourselves, and obviously at pre-seed and seed stage, a lot of things are unproven, and a lot of an investment is about belief that these things can be done in the coming years, then we may look to invest. I'm probably running out of time. So lastly, just as a tip to anybody that might be looking to put together a pitch deck in the coming weeks or months, one of my colleagues, Luca, has prepped a good template and guide that, again, you can find if you go to J12Ventures on Medium. Check it out and see if it provides any value to you. So that was what I thought to run through.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for this valuable input, Emmet. That was so inspiring, and I'm sure that our audience have found a lot of value in everything you shared. I love the no mellanmjölk motto that you have at J12, and it says so much about your organization and things that you do there. So awesome. Julia, you're up next. Stage is all yours.
Nice, thank you. So I'll also try to keep it short, but I'll tell you more about the Business Lab. So our mission is to strengthen Sweden's competitiveness, and we do so by providing a platform for growth to exceptional entrepreneurs. I don't know if you see the slide. It's lagging a bit for me, but
yeah, we see it. Yes,
perfect. What we do with that is basically help students, alumni, staff, and faculty to grow with their ventures. And we do so from a very, very early stage to internationalizing. So it goes quite far. And we work a lot with these values. So diversity and inclusion has been something that has been super important for us ever since I came in, actually. When I started, I saw that there were a lot of the same kinds of people that came in through our doors, and I wanted to make way for more people who didn't look and think just like everyone who was in our office. So during the time that I've been here, we've done a lot for diversity in both the space that we're in, but also putting pressure on teams and on other investors, actually, to have diverse teams in their decision-making process, so that we make sure that more teams who are not the typical kind of entrepreneur actually succeed. And passion for community is a lot about the community that we bring in from SSC. For anyone who has studied there, you know that the community among the students is very, very strong, and among alumni especially. And we want to bring that to the co-working space for the startups. So we talk a lot about supporting each other and helping out where help is needed. And a lot of our alumni come back to support our startups, which is super fun. And we actually run our entire business based on pro bono help from coaches and mentors. And we do so really well compared to many other incubators who have hired staff for this kind of support. And that's all because of the sort of culture that we have created of giving back. And then Courage to be Bold Of course, we can't always just be inclusive and happy and sharing, right? We have to also strive for creating something better and go out of our comfort zone and be bold and trying to really find a way to solve problems that are worth solving. And for that, you need courage and you need boldness, and that's our value. And this is basically the programs that you can apply to if you have at least one co-founder who are student, alumni, faculty, or staff at SSE. And you have the IDEA program that focuses more on inspiration, idea, concept. Here we help students from actually all universities now from spring and on who have an idea that they're passionate about solving or looking to find a team, or they have a team and looking to find an idea, or missing both. And there you can basically meet other people and also find an idea worth solving. And then we have the Activate program, which is our very short 2-month acceleration program for companies that have an idea and they have a team in place and they're ready to commit and validate that towards the market. And after the 2 months are up, then we look at your prototype and first customer, which is what we want to see for you to be able to enter the Incubate program, where you go from sort of validating and scaling your idea and eventually, of course, internationalizing. And for the Incubate program today, we require a diverse team and also that sustainability is integrated into your core idea. And our alumni consists of companies such as Klarna, Budbee, Voi. I mean, these are some of the other alumni companies as well. We love to brag about these. We've had more than 230 companies now through our program since we started in 2001. They've raised over 31 billion SEK, and today they are valued to more than 410 billion SEK, which is really not anything that you will see in any type of incubator or accelerator in Sweden. Of course, a large part of that is Klarna, but if you would ask any investor, that's sort of the venture model that everything is built on. And 59% of these companies are actually still active, which is quite cool. And speaking of capital and valuations, we are here to talk about fundraising. And I mean, I sit here in a room with a bunch of super competent investors. So I was thinking that I would give a different perspective. I do angel invest on the side of my job and I sit on boards. So I have that perspective. But what I love to work mostly with our startups is actually giving them a different set of perspective than they might have to begin with. So I thought I would share with you 2 of my tips for attracting capital. So tip 1 is building relationships, and I'm sure everyone agrees with me on this, that really everything that we do in the venture world it's not attracting capital, it's building relationships to have a mutual exchange. And it's a partnership. And everyone says that once you have an investor on board, you basically marry that person because you're not going to be able to sort of cut things off just like that, right? So building a relationship is super important. And so how do you do that? I always take this song by Pitbull. I don't know if you've heard it, but I love to quote him on this. He says, "Ask for money, get advice. Ask for advice, get money twice." And it's I can't really say anything about Pitbull, but at least this quote is so relevant for, I think he wasn't singing about investor relationships, but it's very true. So if you create a relationship with an investor before you need the money, you are more likely to get the money in the end, because what investors want to get is to know you and to understand that you are, like Emmet said, sort of capable of driving this go-to-market strategy, and they want to see that you are capable of running this company, right? And if you get to know someone, it's much more likely that you can prove that. So start with building relationships and then ask for money. And tip 2 is to shift the power balance. We usually talk about attracting capital or raising capital like it's something that the startup should do, and they are in their power balance is sort of the investor has all the power and the startup has none. But you have to remember that raising capital is actually allowing investors to make money off of your work. And this is super important because if you create a power balance that is very uneven, you're not going to create a partnership or a marriage, right? You're going to have to have someone that you report to or feel like you owe someone something. But you have to remember that investors get rich off of you working. And this is something that you should consider when you go into meetings. How can I find a mutual partnership where I like the person that comes into my company, and they can contribute and they can give something to me without just giving capital, but also that I can provide something for them, of course, because I'm creating this great company. And if you believe that, which I'm sure you do, then you should think like this. So those are my brief tips of raising capital that probably an investor wouldn't say, but that I can say because I'm not an investor like that. Thank you.
Wow, thank you very much, Julia. This was such an insightful presentation, and I personally love your culture of giving back and your pro bono work and your own fight for diversity and equality in tech. This is very, very impressive. Start with relationship and then ask for money. So brilliant. And having companies, alumni companies like Yolibox, Boy, Klarna, huge success. So thank you very much for sharing this with us today.
Thank you.
You're up next, Marcus. The stage is all yours.
Thank you. I really liked the tips there, even though shifting the balance is a bit scary, but it's very much true. Let's see. Do you see the presentation?
Yes, we do.
Yes, very good. So just to start off with Almi Invest and Almi Invest in numbers, basically. I mean, we are a very active government-funded VC, so we are industry agnostic. The main focus is really pre-seed, seed stage across many different verticals. Even though the potential for the companies, that's basically the same requirements as for most private VCs out there. So that is not different, but we invest quite broadly in terms of industries. We have a network of over 1,000 investors that we have done businesses with and co-invested with. So it's pretty huge network that we can support the companies with. Investment manager-wise, we are over 40 people right now, spread across Sweden. And as I said before, we do about 50, 60 investments in the peak. A couple of years ago, we did 70 investments per year. And even more so when it comes to follow-on investments and exits as well. So it's basically one transaction per day within Almi Invest, I would say. We are split into 8 regional funds. So depending on where you're located in Sweden, you apply or contact different funds or teams. And me and the team here in Stockholm, we are 7 people. We focus on Stockholm-based companies. So if you register in Stockholm, then you can contact me or anyone in my team. We have over 350 companies in the portfolio as of today. And overall, since we started in 2009, we have done over 700 investments. So half of them has been exited. And we have drawn some learnings from those 350 exits, which I tell you a bit more in a couple of minutes. Asset under management, about 3.5 billion, and investments per company is up to 10 million SEK normally. I think on average, we invest 5, 6, 7 million per company. Initially,
Marcus,
it's usually...
I'm sorry, I might need to interrupt you for a second here, but if you could just put your presentation in presentation mode so you can switch slides.
Well. That's strange because it is for me.
Yeah, now you're changing slides.
Maybe it's lagging.
It could be that.
You see the numbers, Almi Invest?
Yes, we do.
And if I switch?
Have you switched now?
Yeah.
I just see the Almi Invest. Yeah, now I switch. So
I switch like this then.
Perfect.
Anyway, normally we invest 2 to 3 million SEK initially in the first round, and we always co-invest with other private investors. So normally the companies that comes to us, they try to raise 5 to 10 million SEK basically. And if you look at the journey or the business cycle for a company, we focus primarily on market entry or earlier. So sometimes a year or two before market entry, and we try to support the companies through the the early phases in the market entry, trying to find the product market fit, getting the first team up and running and the first customers there. And then when it's time to scale the business even more, you usually bring in later stage investors, and then we usually take a step back. So our focus is really market entry and the first 2-3 years within that journey. You can compare this with J12. I think it's very much similar, most of it. But if you come to us and present, these are the 10 main things we want to see. So, come with a presentation with 10 slides. That's usually enough. The background, why are you doing this? What's the problem that you're trying to solve? What's your solution? Why now? So basically, what are the mega trends or the things out there that is supporting you? Why is this a good timing? So time should be your friend, not your enemy. That's what we're looking for. We look at the market, the size, the growth, the speed of change in the market. We look at the competition. We want to understand your take on the business model and how you should sell this, basically, how you should go to the market. The team, usually you want to see 3 main competencies within the team initially. That should be the visionary person or the CEO. Usually it's someone who knows the technology and someone who knows sales and marketing. Those are in principle the 3 main competencies. And then the financials. It's not so much history usually in the companies when it comes to financials, but your take on the capital need, your projections for the business, and what type of valuation that you're looking for when you raise money, basically. In these early phases, it's usually it's really about the entrepreneurs and the teams. So we never invest in single founders. It's always a team that we invest in. So if to focus on anything in particular, it should really be the team and the setup there. Besides that, it needs to be a market that has the potential to really scale and create the value needed for bringing in VC capital. And that also implies that it should be a highly relevant problem that customers are willing to pay for, and your solution should be unique. But don't forget about the team and make sure that the team also has relevant ownership stakes in the company. Then at the later stage, then investors can start to bet on the traction or the revenue or even the unit economics, depending on where you are. But initially, it's so much about the team. And to end with a slide, and this might be interesting because to us, this makes you stand out. So we looked at the 350 investments or exits that we have done and looked at, I think it was 15 hypotheses about what makes a good investments or a less good investments. And 6 of these came out as significant in our study. And the first one is really, a deep tech company. And maybe that's because it's our primary focus, I would say. So we have a history of doing a lot of deep tech investments. But if you have a business that has the ability to build barriers to entry efficiently, it might be that it's, based on research or patented, but it can also be that you build barriers through data or through other means. So it doesn't have to be deep tech. But for us, deep tech has been a significant driver for good investments. If we want to sacrifice our money and take a risk, we want you to take a risk. So the companies that have founders with really skin in the game, who had sacrificed something themselves, missed salary, invested their own money, or whatever it might be, those investments turn out better for us than others. Growth markets that grow more than 10% was the definition. So really, what it means, it's easier to grow a business if you don't have to take market share from your competitors, but that the actual market growth is supporting your growth as well. We are industry independent, as I said before. So if we bring in investors that really knows the specific industry, those investments has turned out better. So that says something about, if you bring in angel investors or investors early on, don't just think about the money, but think about the smart money as well. They should be able to support you with more than just the capital. Team setup, I mentioned that, and that is important, not to be a single founder and have a team set up with diversity and mixed competencies that are complementary, basically. And then if someone in the team has industry-specific experience from the market that you're targeting, those investments turned out better for us. So if you tick these 6 boxes, you really stand out. Very few do. So that's something to think about when you pitch for us, I would say. Thank you.
Wow, thank you so much, Marcus. Time should be your friend, not your enemy. Absolutely love it. Almi investors invested so widely during the autumn, some AI, some medtech, biotech. I absolutely love the diversity in your investments. And thank you so much for this insightful and so exciting presentation. Next up is Simon. Let's hear from you, Simon.
Awesome. Let me do this. Share my desktop and go for play. Do you see it? Yes. Awesome. Okay, so just to start off, as I said before, I do basically 2 things, or basically 3 things, but these are the 2 venture things that I do. We have pretty recently launched an angel fund, or a super pre-seed fund, actually. It's called Greens, where we primarily invest in repeat entrepreneurs who have a track record working at one of the unicorns in Stockholm. So we do digital disruption overall. So companies that develop scalable new technologies that we can take to other kinds of markets. For the other fund that I founded is a fund called XYVentures, where we primarily do pre-seed investments and sometimes even seed investments. Really depends on the scope of the project that we're backing. And our niche here is just as previous speakers in Almi, we do deep tech primarily. And the reason why we do deep tech is because there needs to be something more than just timing to the market and a good team. We're really looking for that competitive edge in products and deep technology knowledge overall, because it excites me. I like it. I like crazy engineers overall. So those are the 2 things that I work on. Besides that, I do quite a lot of angel deals and try to help entrepreneurs. So somewhat what you said before kind of resonates with me. I tend to like to work with entrepreneurs before I invest in them. And that's not really a scalable model, especially if you're trying to do a fund. But nevertheless, I feel that there needs to be a connection more than just money for me to actually invest in projects. So what do we invest in? Well, we invest in engineers that create radical new technologies. And I work with quite a wide network from Bay Area. So actually, the founder of Founder Institute, his name is Adi Resi. He is one of my partners, together with another guy here in Stockholm who's done a couple of nice large scale companies. So what we have done and what we're looking at is investing into artificial technology and data management infrastructure and applications, distributed ledger systems, and then connectivity. And the partner network that we have has made quite a nice, astonishing investments overall. So we were early at Scale, GitLab, Trust Token, and a bunch of other companies. And so, like, if you compile the records, then we've done something like 500 investments. But that's all the partners combined that we have in XY. So we've done a lot of investments, and we're really enjoying this deep tech space. So in terms of how we compare, we are primarily seed, but also a little bit of a pre-seed, and we source quite a lot of our deal flow from these players on the screen, as opposed to Greens, which would be placed in the angel or sort of the Carezzo Forum kind of parts of the value chain. And yeah, so what I guess this is the most important slide, at least for emerging entrepreneurs. But what we really like to look at is good founding teams. Like, it's all about the entrepreneur in the beginning, and so the key question is, how do you get to know them, and how do you know that they will stand out? So the way that we work with those kinds of questions is that we have a lot of proxies, investment proxies. And one of the most successful proxies that we use, I say, is that we source primarily from the larger accelerator programs, because they have a good track record overall, and also it's quite hard to get into Y Combinator and MIT's accelerator program, Techstars. And so what we do, as I've been a mentor for basically all of these, and Audio has founded one of them, and Marcus, the other guy, has also been involved with these players. We get early ins on these accelerator programs before they go to demo day. So basically, that's how we pick up companies. But that barely answers the questions: what makes a good team, right? Or what makes a good case? And so to synthesize that, I say three things. First of all, the team, right? It needs to be a good team. Repeat entrepreneurs overall tend to have like a 70% better chance of actually founding a company that will go to the moon, as contrast to other founders. The other thing is that we look for an emerging market, a market that is growing. I kind of like under digitalized industries overall. I kind of enjoy manufacturing because there's so many opportunities within manufacturing, that industry, to change and to become more efficient. And so what we basically look for there is interesting parts of the value chain where we see that digital disruption is bound to happen within a year or two. So market is important. And then the final sort of thing that we look for is somewhat of a track record or traction into the market. Have you tried it out, or is this just a paper product? And the reason why we do that, as opposed to other investors, is because I don't like inflating valuations of companies. I think it's something profoundly weird about the way that the companies raise money today, especially when you have like a paper napkin sort of business plan and you go up and ask for $2 million at a valuation of like 20. There's no substantial value in those kinds of businesses unless you have a really great track record or have tried it out yourself in the past. So I'd say that track record is kind of important. And so what kind of tips do I have? Well, the best way to raise money is to you don't need money, right? If you don't need it, then people like me will throw money at you. So I'd say that don't be too fast on raising capital. Build something that actually works, instead of just focusing on raising capital and then doing stuff that works. So make sure you build something of value before you go out and raise capital. At least to me, like there are plenty of versions of other investors who like to invest on good ideas, and that would prove my thesis wrong. But for me, I think that there needs to be some kind of substantial value, and that there needs to be some kind of idea of how to monetize your business model, because otherwise it becomes it quickly becomes an inflated company with promises of making revenue further down the line. The question is only when, right? So that's a risk factor that we try to manage. And then the overall risk process that we work with, much like all the other players here as well, we have quite a rigorous way of assessing risk, where we go through the entire business model and then try to understand, is this actually a $1 billion company, or has it the potential to be a $1 billion company, or is it smokes and mirrors? And specifically, since we sourced a lot of companies in the area, it tends to be a hard game to play sometimes, to sort of figure out which ones are the actual ones that make sense. But yeah, that would be my 2 cents on investments. And if you have an idea or just want to have a chat about moving forward with your own ventures, then reach out, because as I said in the beginning, I tend to like to work with entrepreneurs, see if I can help them with anything other than money at first, just to see what you do with my advice or my connections. I think that's tells you a lot about a person when you if they actually act on the advice that you give them. So I'm happy to help anyone that is trying to change the world, basically trying to build a brighter future. And technology is a component part of that. So build something awesome. All right, that's my pitch.
Perfect.
Or pitch. I don't know. Presentation.
Thank you so much, Simon. Thank you for your generosity with your knowledge. And I love it when you say if you don't need money, people throw their money at you. So make sure to build something of value before you raise capital. So thank you very much for your insights. Very valuable. Guys, you should follow Simon on Twitter for some of the coolest updates. And he's done some.
I'm not sure about Twitter. I suck at Twitter, but it's a good way to get in contact.
Yeah. Perfect. Well, thank you very much, Simon. Stefan, it's all yours.
Thank you. So there you go. Thank you. Just to recap a bit who we are in Connect. We are a non-profit organization. We are not investing money ourselves from Connect. But we are facilitating the largest network of angel investors in Sweden. And as I said earlier, we work with around 150 startup companies per year. And in 5 regions, we have, I would say, actually a national coverage. So we work a bit differently in the different regions. Of course, me sitting in Stockholm in the kind of best universe for startups and innovation in Sweden or maybe in the world. So that's great. So we work basically mostly with startups and early stage companies. And also, as said, we in Stockholm, we have 4 people working with maybe 40 companies per year. How is that possible? Of course, we have a lot of experts and people in the network that helps out. There could be enterprises, experts, entrepreneurs that have made the journey earlier and so on. They do that pro bono many times. So it's kind of big network with experts and investors. And where are we then in this kind of universe? We think we are most useful when you actually have maybe coming from an incubator, you have received the first maybe funding from Almi, Företagspartner, the innovation check and so on. You ask your friends and family for the first check. But then, of course, when it's time to maybe go to market and maybe step off, then it's you need a bigger chunk of money. And there is where we want to be in Connect. So you need to have, of course, a great idea. Hopefully you have some kind of proof of concept before you come to us. So that is what we call the springboard, where we help companies to get ready actually to take in money, because lots of companies come to us, and I would say that half of them, they are too early. They need to actually be more prepared. I will tell you a bit more about this Språngbrädan later on. We also have other programs, Evolve, and that is for companies when you actually worked a lot to actually get your funding, you have the capital in place, you have the team in place and so on. Next step is, of course, to execute on all the milestones you have promised to execute on to your new owners or to other founders. The idea is there, even though you have the biggest, the best product, I mean, you have the demand, you have the business model in place, but still you could go bankrupt, so things could go wrong because maybe you don't have the competence, the experience, or the right people. So we try to actually help you with that. So it's nothing about funding, it's more about execute efficiently. And the last bucket is also companies that have actually been with us in the springboard. We know that maybe a half a year or 24 months later, it's time for the second funding round. So we want to help out there as well. So we want to work with companies for a longer period of time, and then when it's maybe a round or in that stage, then our network we can't facilitate and maybe fund $2 million rounds. Then it's time for other players to step in. So Springboard, that is also, we help companies to be attractive for people like Simon or for Marcus or for Emmet, of course. And it's also to somehow shorten the way so that the companies in the Springboard, of course, they need to understand and have good knowledge about the market, the competition, and so on. They need to have a team in place, and they need to know the dynamics of the market and so on. But they also need to understand from an investor perspective, what kind of risk are investors taking? What kind of risk premium are they actually want to have to invest in early stage companies with maybe no revenues, maybe you just have an MVP and so on. Of course, the risk level is extremely high. So they need to understand it also when it comes to valuation. So we actually focus on that in Springboard. I think those are other hygiene factors and how a pitch should be built up. I think a lot of you founders, you know that. You can Google on it and you also know what needs to be in there. But to really understand how the investors think, depending on the investor, if it's a VC or if it's an angel, that is of course extremely important. So that's Springboard. And what we're looking for, we also want, there must be a team, maybe not a full team, but at least 2 founders. Some proof of concept, of course, makes life easier. And also, we're also looking for big problems to be solved, large opportunities. And why so? Because our investor network is actually looking for that kind of cases. And also, I think the founders need to be open-minded, have a learning attitude, taking in advice from others in the network. That's important, of course. So we call it Springboard Investment Readiness. And the aim is, of course, to make them so prepared, make life easier for both them and for the investors, so they meet, so the hit ratio becomes high. So from the investors' perspective, we do the kind of footwork they don't have time to do, and for the founders, we help them to really understand the process and the mindset of the investors. Have we been successful? Could be a question. I would say so. I would say 50% of the companies actually run through the Springboard, they get funding. Not saying that we actually fill the full round, but we very often in a round of 10 million, maybe we can provide the first 1-2 million, which is extremely important. And then of course we work together with other parties like Marcus, Almi Invest. So we could be the fresh, good start, because then the other investors know that we actually looked at the company, where them done some quality checks and so on. So it makes life much easier. Språngbrädan is 10 weeks. Most founders say, but we need money yesterday. And that's the reason why they're not going outdoor. But usually when they actually run through the program 10 weeks, they say, great that you have this investor network, but I mean the process, the things we learn and so on, that was excellent. We are much more prepared. Some might say we're not prepared. We need to wait. The timing for us was not right. So we work with 5 companies per year in my region. But to give you some advice, my first advice to any founders is that find yourself via equity. It's the most expensive funding you can look for. And I think it was maybe also Simon that said that. So I said, try to, get, if you can actually borrow the money in a way that you're not getting diluted, then try to do that. talk to Almi, talk to Vinnova. If there's some other grants, try to get all of that. And the particular case, I would say, founders come to us and say, "Oh, we want to raise 10 million." And I say, "Okay, 10 million, that's quite a big sum. Why?" But and of course, that has some kind of a process and timeline for when things are supposed to happen and so on. And then my first question would be, but okay, 10 million, you're in an early stage. I know the risk premium the investors want. So I asked them, but how far can you get? How much value can you build in your company for only 2 million? But then we can bring in some new clients. But start with 2 million and take it from there, because your valuation, when you actually have some more proof, you have built some more value, then go for the other 8 or whatever. So don't be too eager to get all those funds into an account, even though it's extremely cumbersome. I know that, to raise money, but the more proof you get, the easier it gets. Yes. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you very much for your valuable insights. And the Springboard program sounds super interesting. I'm sure that our audience are bubbling with questions right now, because I see them flooding at the moment. So thank you all for sharing such brilliant insights and your knowledge about funding market in Sweden. Keeping up with the bullet pace of this event, guys, we're now heading towards our question and answer session. So super happy to see so many people tuning in. Continue typing in your questions and comments, and we'll try to answer as many as we can today. In the meanwhile, for those of you who are curious about our FI program in Sweden, let me give you a brief intro to the program. The Founder Institute is the world's largest pre-seed startup accelerator, having helped launch over 5,000 companies across 200 plus cities and 6 continents. So in total, Founder Institute alumni have raised over $1 billion and are worth an estimated $30 billion. The early deadline for applying to our Sweden Virtual 2022 program is 5th December. And you can find the application link and details on our website. And please feel free to contact the team if you'd like to know more. And here are some important dates to remember. And you can always apply at our on our website and find all the details over there. Okie dokie. We are now going to move towards our audience question and answers. So can I please request all speakers to turn on their microphones and their cameras? There's a long list of questions and we'll try to answer as many as we can tonight. Great. Let's see. So what's the biggest mistake you see entrepreneurs make with their startup pitch? This question is directed at everyone. Anyone can answer. The biggest mistake with startup pitch. Who would like to take that?
The biggest is hard to tell, but I think, one mistake that we see quite often is that you have not made your own research on the investors. So, you need to understand what the specific investors are focusing on and what they are looking for. And then you also need to understand the basic model for an investor on what type of risk they are willing to take, and hence also what type of potential they must see. So, if to go for venture capital, it needs to be super high potential in your business, and it needs to have the potential to scale quickly and to create a lot of value in short time, because that's the core thing of the business model for a VC. So understand the ones that you're contacting, what they look for, but also make sure that you pitch a potential that is linked to what VCs are looking for.
Perfect. Thank you very much for that answer. Emmet, you raised your hand.
I just thought I'd add, if thinking specifically around, like pitch decks and material, I think one mistake founders can often make is sadly not to appreciate enough how little time many investors will spend on that material. So the material has to be prepared extremely coherently, very clearly what you're doing, why it makes a lot of sense, storytelling that pieces everything within the deck together, because I think you would see a lot of data that would show that maybe investors spend not more than 2 minutes going through slides in an initial sense and to get a feel for things. So it has to hit home very quickly to grab attention. The saddest nature of things is if an investor is looking at 1,000 opportunities a year, the mindset can often tend towards, okay, what is the first reason I can find to think that this is not something that I should spend more time on, so that I can move on to the next thing that will be. That's unfortunately a default setting that I think you'll find a lot of investors land on. And so you need to present what you do in a way that doesn't let someone reach that conclusion very quickly. Give them very quickly the reason yes as to why they should have you should have their attention, and warrant more of it.
Perfect. Thank you very much for the answer. Said from Dia Interactive has asked that development costs have inflated and they've ballooned in Sweden because of a huge shortage of techies. Is this something investors are worried about? Yes, please, Emmet.
I think it's something that we note. I don't think it's specific to Stockholm. I think many tech hubs face a similar competition for talent. It's, I guess, the effect of having the Klarnas and the Spotifys, that it's very competitive to attract a great engineer, not to work in one of those environments. I think there's probably a shift, that continues towards distributed tech teams, looking at, having talent in other countries and offshore tech teams, and, recognizing that companies with experienced CTOs can attract talent from further afield and not only in the local pool. But for sure, but I don't think it's just a Sweden challenge. I think it's for many places where companies are trying to build great tech companies.
Perfect, thank you. Armin Cosmo wants to ask Marcus for deep tech, how do you assess the risk for this type of company that are focused on the long term?
Sorry, to whom was the question? Was it to me or? No?
Yes, Marcus, the question is directed at you. How do you assess the risk for the kind of companies that are focused on the long term?
Ooh, hard question, but it's super high risk since you have a longer time to the market for sure, and usually the capital need is bigger. So one thing that could limit the risk is if it's if you have some type of patent or IP in the company. I think that's one thing. Risk assessment wise is also very much linked to the team and the background of the team, I would say. And also what type of backers, potential angel investors or advisors that you have. That are some things, but then you can also assess the risk depending on your assessment of the actual need out there in the market, or the market size, or the competition, etc. So I think there are many angel aspects that you can look at when it comes to this. But again, in these early phases, the team and the experience and the background of the team, I think that's a key. And maybe even more so when it's deep tech.
Awesome. Armin, I hope that answers your question. The next question is directed at you, Simon. It's asked by Ricard. He wants to know, do you help to complement the team?
Yes, we do. Like the main one thing that you probably shouldn't forget is that it's fairly competitive as VC firm when you look for interesting investments. And so the question that you probably should ask yourself is, what do these people contribute more than just money? And so what we try to do is to leverage our network in the States to basically make a nice entry once it's time to do that, by usually follow a Series A round. but really try to help out the entrepreneur to commercialize the technologies and make sure that there's a sufficient go-to-market plan that actually will work. And so obviously we try to leverage our other portfolio companies as potential clients for the investments that we look at. So if we see synergies, that's an ideal case. I mean, but yeah, we help the people that we invest in. We help them with a lot of things, given that they want help, of course. But yeah, we're really trying to be, for one, founder friendly, and to make sure that we can bring something more to the table than just money.
Perfect. Thank you very much. And Simon, while you're at it, the next question is also directed at you. Daniel from Peya would like to know, most VCs reach out to us saying that we should raise as much as we can, as early as we can. So would you say it's because they want in early to get more bang for the buck and as big a piece of the cake as possible?
Well, that's a good problem, I guess. if they ask you to raise more money. No, but yeah, it really depends on where you're coming from. Sometimes it can be a way to get in earlier and be able to get nicer multiples on your initial investments. In other cases, it might be that the money that you're actually trying to raise won't be sufficient to land into a market. I mean, if you do pre-seed deals, basically the only thing you use the money for is to see if you can land a product into the market. And so the question is really, will that money be sufficient to get you into the market and see if people actually like your product or not, or companies? And if you plan to raise 1 million kroners and you're supposed to disrupt the entire, infrastructure of energy, then that probably won't be enough, because you just end up burning that in meetings. So then you probably need to raise some more money. But then you have a good problem, right? Because then you can probably increase your valuation as well. So
yeah, thank you very much. Thank you, Simon. Carl wants to know, and the question is open for all. Are any of you open to investing in Swedish founded companies based outside of Sweden? And what advice would you give to a company in that position? Swedish founded companies outside of Sweden.
Well, we obviously do that. So I'd say yes. And the advice that I give is, if you want Swedish investors, move to Sweden. And if you want American investors, move to the US. So that be a short answer to that question.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yep. We also invest outside of Sweden, across Europe.
Awesome. Great. That's great to know. The next question is directed at you, Julia. When you're looking for a founder, what are your main tips? What are the main failures you see that an entrepreneur can learn much from when helping startups?
It's so hard to say specific things about entrepreneurs that are really great, but I think some of the common themes are definitely that you have a passion for the problem that you're solving and you're not so stuck on your solution, but rather interested in finding ways that actually meet the target group and that solve the problem. But also that you have grit, and that I see a lot of people discussing single foundership in the chat, and of course we look at teams only and not single founders, and that's because it's really tough to be an entrepreneur. And during those times, I've seen so many examples myself. During those times when it is tough, it's really problematic to be one person only, because you're going to have a tough time managing all the struggle and emotions that you go through. So really finding someone that you can sort of bounce that off of is really important. And then, of course, determination and patience. It's going to take time, and that's super important to have with you and think about. And then a common mistake that we see, at least, that's building a product too soon, and rather than sort of testing and validating the idea towards the market and the target group, people start building things and developing things. And I think that's the wrong end to start. And I would rather go with, paper and PowerPoint and prototypes in any of the Google apps, for example, just trying to figure things out that you're really, really meeting the demands of the market before you build something, and put time and money, because it usually costs a lot of money on that.
Perfect. Thank you, Julia. The next question is also for you. Shabnam wants to know, is it mandatory to have one of the founding members associated with SSE as a student, alumni, employee for application to the SSE Business Lab?
Yes. So since we're funded through the university, we require at least one person to have that background. But I encourage you to find someone with a background if you haven't got one in your team, because they are great additions usually to a team.
Okay, thank you. There's an anonymous question here, and it's open to anyone. What are the limited number of people to start with? Or how many people are required to start with? That's what I can make of it. But maybe whoever asked this,
as founders.
I suppose this is as founders, but whoever asked this question, could you clarify it a little bit while we hop on to another one in the meanwhile? So Anne Coppens wants to know, if your company is not necessarily in a super cool new tech space, but rather a B2B SaaS, what are you looking to hear for them to stand out enough to grab your interest? And the question is at anyone.
I think something to that stand. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. You can go, Marcus. It feels like I'm talking all the time.
I answered in written. So please add your thoughts on it.
Okay, sure. I think the kind of cases that stands out to me are people that have a sort of a coherent story overall, like why they're doing certain stuff. And I mean, the cases that we end up investing in are usually people who has done something quite incredible within the same kind of space before, and now they're trying to commercialize this in a different way or a different setting with a different team. And so really, track record is key for me to see if people can live up to the promises that they make. So that's all it is. Tell me a good story and I'll listen.
Perfect. I love that. Guys, I see that there's a flood of questions still flowing in, but unfortunately, it looks like we're running out of time. Please feel free to reach out to the FI team on LinkedIn and with any follow-up questions that you might have, or alternatively, you can email us, you can approach us on social media. Join the program and connect with the speakers and more than 100 other mentors to get all the guidance that you need to kick off your business. And now comes the juiciest part of this webinar, where we invite you to Airmeet. And this will be a networking session where you can, if you're interested in building a network, just bouncing around ideas, asking each other for tips, or just simply practicing your elevator pitch with people in the same boat as you are. So join this networking session on Airmeet, and you can find the link in the chat. Before you hop on to the other link, we have I'd like to tell you about a series of events that are coming up, so do keep an eye on our page for that. And do not forget that our early admission deadline is the 5th of December. Thank you, speakers, for your time, your insights, your engagement, and your support to help the upcoming founders understand the process of funding in Sweden and create a better world by building purpose-driven, impactful companies that matter. So see you all at Airmeet. Thank you very much for being here today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.
Yeah.
Thank you. Bye-bye.